You are listening to PatchBay on tymkrs.
Welcome to PatchBay, conversational podcast all about audio equipment, music, audio engineering, recording, live sound, and whatever else happens to come up. You never know on this show, so pay attention. Hey, Shane.
Hey, dude. How's it going today?
Oh, fine.
Yeah, that's good.
I had the studio taken apart yesterday because to do some mixing this week, I needed to use my monitors in a comfortable position. So I ripped everything out of here and did that job, and then had to bring everything back in here yesterday evening and get it tested so that we'd be ready to roll today.
Oh, geez. That's always fun. It's nice when everything works when you put it all back together, though, eh?
Yeah, they went back together, no problems. Well, other than the problems we had before taking it apart.
Fair enough. Yeah. I remember I when I first got my Motu stuff, I put that stuff together. I got it all together in the morning, all the gear, put it all together, got everything loaded on the computer, fired it up, and had a session in the afternoon, and everything was working perfect. That's hilarious. It was like a testament to how wicked their audio gear is. Well, at least at the time anyway. I haven't used their products in a while, but yeah, it's nice when everything works out like that. So you moved the speakers just so that you could sit back and relax and mix was the plan, or what?
Yeah, the main recording room here that we usually refer to as the studio is set up for recording podcasts. And my monitors don't live in here because we only do live monitoring through our AKG headphones. That's all that's really required. And all the mastering happens over in my office. And that's where my big monitors live. But we did some recording earlier this year for our little band project thing. And we, of course, talked about this on the show at the time. And I needed to do some mix for one of those tracks this week, and I definitely didn't want to sit on a tractor seat stool in here for 20 hours straight trying to do that job. So I just moved the good Mac in there to do the job.
Do it up, yeah. So segue, you sent me a song in the mail. Was that band stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
I think we should put a little bit of a snippet of that one. Just so
well, because it's mine, we can include the whole thing if we want to. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Might as well.
We can just stick it right in here. And
right here?
Yeah, well, here.
No home to go to, walking all the way. Souls are worn and bent down, little left to say. Ain't no home to go to, walking all the way. Souls are worn and bent down, the ground to stay. walking all the way. Souls are worn and bent down, little left to say. Ain't no home to go to, walking all the way. Souls are worn and bent down, in the ground to stay.
That's a good tune. I like the little reverse thing. I mentioned in an email before, but I'm mentioning it again. I like the vocal treatment. It's very dry feeling. Kind of reminds me of the Saturday Night Music Club or Tuesday Night Music Club Sheryl Crow record. That I can't remember the guy's name. Tashad Blake mixed. And then I think I've discussed him before, and you didn't know who I was talking about. So you need to look him up because you guys have a similar style as far as gear and your ear is concerned. You know.
All right. Well, pass me a link or something I can look at, and I will.
Okay, cool.
So you keep mentioning this reverse thing, and I'm wondering what part you're talking about because I didn't reverse anything.
No, it's not a it's just that lo-fi kind of thing at the ends of some of the passages. It's not obviously not reversed, but it's like a synth lo-fi thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, not reverse. Sorry, lo-fi. But I'm digging it.
It crunches out occasionally. It sort of drops down and crunches out, and it's good.
Yeah, I liked that. For me, that's kind of was sort of the hooky musical part of it. That and the guitar melody line or the counter melody line. That's another smart idea.
Yeah, we were lucky that our guitarist was in town from Albuquerque for a weekend, so we got to record a lot of that stuff right here in the studio. And we tried to record as many little bridge parts and linking parts and melody and counter melodies and whatnot as we could over the weekend, so I had a lot of material to pull from and put back together any way I felt like, and it seemed to work out.
Yeah, it's nice when you can do that and when everything's sort of in time, and you can kind of have an idea and sort of create it after the fact, right? Like you're sort of putting it together after the fact, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat, especially when it works out.
So, were you interested to know how I pulled off that lo-fi thing?
For sure. I actually think everybody be curious of it. Yeah, explain the process.
It's completely different from how you'd normally approach it, so I think it would be worth talking about for just a second.
Cool.
So basically, instead of having a percussion track with drums on this song, what we did was throw some washers into a cigar box, and that's sort of the replacement for the hi-hat and snare and all that sort of thing, all the high-frequency stuff. And
random.
For the low-frequency stuff, what we did was we took a little pen light and put it under the strings, between the strings, and I think it was 1 fret off of the 12th fret of an acoustic guitar, and just sort of beat on the guitar for the rhythm bits.
Nice.
So for the lower percussion sounds, it's an acoustic guitar mic'd up very close with an M Audio Pulsar 2 small diaphragm condenser mic.
Okay. Yeah.
And those are very sensitive, and they pick up all sorts of things you don't want them to.
Right.
Normally
you
that would be a
accentuated
problem because what happened here when we were beating on this drum, we wanted to get the near field effect of having that thing too close to the sound hole so that would make the lower end more full. Normally you'd want to avoid that, but because we were doing something weird anyway, we thought, what the heck, we'll go with it and just take advantage of that near field effect and get a much more bassy sound. And so it's up close and it's turned up way too loud on the preamp, and it picked up Addie, the singer. It picked up her from the headphones that we were playing to.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, obviously, one would want to avoid this kind of thing. And I could have fixed it, but instead of fixing it, what I did was sliced out the pieces where you could just faintly hear in the background, and compressed and brought the digital gain up on those slices to the point where it was ridiculously compressed up at the top. So the boomy bass sound is actually quieter than the background interference sound of the stuff that's bleeding from the headphones into it. And that's where some of that lo-fi sound is coming from. I also did the same effect on the shaker bit there with the cigar box guitar full of washers. And that's where the more general lo-fi, crackly sort of sound comes in, is that thing, just for that little section there, is so compressed that it just sounds lo-fi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's hilarious. That's total digital alchemy right there. I would never have thought of doing that. So the actual vocal take is the headphone bleed?
Well,
Or
just in that little bridge part,
just in the bridge part, yeah.
you can hear just the little echoes of a voice quietly in the background, and that's where the lo-fi is coming from. Now, for
That's cool.
the vocal parts in what I guess we'd call the chorus area there, that's just straight up with a condenser. No trickery there.
And no real effects either on our
No,
vocal.
nothing.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
literally just, I don't even think I really compressed that at all. I just got the peaks right and made it so that it was up to the top, but not going to the point where it would get limited or anything like that. So it's a little quieter in the mix than I'd like. But where I would normally bring it up to, it was starting to sound a little compressed. So I left it lower and left it very clean intentionally. I don't know what I'll do with it for the final mix, but for this one, I think that worked okay.
I like it. My only other suggestion was maybe some like a delayed slapback or something. What might be kind of cool to
Just
do.
to put her into the space with everything else.
Yeah, although I like the dry delivery thing too. But what might be really cool to try is a delayed send to verb. So, like this is how they used to do it. They'd have tape delay,
Yeah.
and then they would, when they were like sending it into the chamber or whatever, they would send the send. Basically, they would daisy chain it, right? So you'd have the delay going to the chamber. So it would actually create a second living space for the vocal other than just reverb. Some people would think that pre-delay, but the thing is with the tape delay, you got the repeats as well that's going into the room, right? And then
Yeah.
it gets and the thing with the tape delay is that the high end on every repeat gets less and less and less, which is kind of cool. And you can you can digitally create that with some sort of EQ trickery.
Yeah.
But it might be kind of fun to try just for the sake of argument, whether it's this tune or I've done it a few times on recordings, and it can be fun. A lot of times I wouldn't roll off like in generations of EQ. You could do that trick you were talking about on episode 18 though with the bandpass filter and moving it moving it just wherever you want as far as the gain is concerned. That might be kind of a neat thing to do on this. So like EQ the delay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be kind of fun to try because it would be wacky. It would send wacky over under accentuated signals to the reverb that's already delayed. Might be interesting.
I know a
Might
lot
be
of digital routing tricks that could allow me to separate out the delay from the clean signal and do all sorts of fun stuff like what you're talking about, and do the what do you call it? The control over time of the center frequency stuff to take care of that aspect of it. I'll have to play.
That it might be fun as to whether it works. Who knows? But it's always a fun experiment to try stuff like that. What I had done in the past on the tape delay or the delay that I was using that was sending to the reverb, I put an EQ on it that was a high end EQ that would slowly roll off and then come back and then slowly so it would pull from 10K down to 5 and then go back up to 10 and back down to 5 kind of slowly. And automate that, and that kind of has that effect of the tape. It's not the same as using an actual tape delay, but it's kind of got that sort of feel to it. The other thing is you can just EQ out, everything above 6,000 on the delay, which would give you that sort of muffled kind of thing. Pre-delay on a reverb is kind of the same idea, but delaying it going in. It's just sort of a different kind of thing. But anyway, it's a cool tune. I think it turned out well. And as far as mix wise is concerned, I don't know if it needs too much more. Even the way it stands, I think it's good.
Yeah, it's getting close. The only changes I think I'll make at this point involve arrangement stuff because I do have verses that go with it too. It was just a matter of not having enough time to do the re-record from the scratch vocals on the verses. It was sort of a rushed thing because it was the guitarist's birthday that day, and I needed to get it together and send that over as a surprise.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I think it turned out well as it stands right now. I don't know, what does it clock in at, like 2 or 3 minutes already?
It's like 4 minutes. 4 minutes and some change. So it was really hard to get the verses in, and yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say with verses it might be a bit more, but it's all good. There are no rules, right?
Yeah, there are no rules, but I like to keep songs short and punchy and sweet.
I tend to agree with you. I hate recording the 7-minute opuses with bands because they tend to cock it up at 6 minutes and 58 seconds or whatever. But yeah. Anyway, so I sent you a quick little demo that I did last night or Saturday night with some blues guys from Winnipeg called DD and the Deadbeats, which is I think a killer blues name. So I was just going to briefly talk. We might play a little minute clip. But I was just going to talk about the setup and why having everything somewhat set up before the band walks in is genius. I had sort of wired everything in my head and pre-wired the room. So basically they walked in and I had to just mic individual things and listen to them and correct some things and stuff like that. But the actual wiring schematic was already, all the cables were ran already. I had baffles up for where the amps were. So what I did, there was 2 amps. I put them side by side, put baffles up, mic'd them, plus I put a little room mic over top of the baffles just to pick up some air on the amps. And everything else I pretty much used dynamic mics for on all the vocals and saxes and stuff like that, just so I could get more directional stuff and less bleed between guys in a room together. That's where dynamics are helpful. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had the drummer in the booth. Everybody was on cans. Um, and that was basically the gist of the situation. The bass player went direct, and I ran a Sans amp plug-in on his bass, which there's a free version of the Artaz Sans amp, which is just genius. And I think there's a VST version of it too. It's really handy for really handy for doing bass stuff. I'm not a huge guitar fan, lover of it, but and then the drums were sort of my default full mic thing. I tend not to usually do toms very often, and then all the mixes I basically did in 10 minutes, 5 minutes a piece. So that was the gist of the setup. And I had room mics for the band and room mics for the drums as well. So one thing I would have done.
Were the drums in a separate room?
Drums were in a separate room, and the one thing I was going to mention is I should have, even though it was kind of live off the floor, I shouldn't have closed the drum booth totally. I should have left it open a crack, just to get a little bit more drum room tone. But having the room mics was kind of nice because they sort of panned them around a little bit. So there was one room mic sort of where the guitars were, and then there was a room mic where across the way from the sax player and the singer. So you got a little bit of that. I was trying to go for that sort of Chess Records kind of sound on it. So anyway, it turned out good, but it was nice to, like I said, nice to have everything sort of pre-wired, and because it's always sort of mass confusion when a band walks and everybody's like, where should I go? Where should I put my stuff? And blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of nice. Like, you go here. Everything's kind of pre-planned kind of,
Yeah, and the mix came out pretty effortless sounding too. So it, I'd say that sounds like a good approach.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that will kind of throw you a curveball, but being pre-set up, the thing was I had conversations with the guy beforehand, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, and they were smart enough to bring not ridiculously loud guitar amps and things like that. The one other sort of saving grace was the drummer, I think, either had a Tama or an AOT kit. I'm not sure off the top of my head at this point, but his snare drum was like really wumpy. Like, there wasn't any crack to it. And thank the gods, I had a snare drum, a Pearl one that was sitting there that is the studio kit, and that we haven't changed the head in forever, and it's just still really snappy. So the only change from his kit was we just switched to my snare drum, and it just livened up the drum part. Like, it was, I tried to add some top end, and it's not gonna happen. Even if I had
you, man, a cigar box full of washers.
I think I'm gonna try that at some point. So you guys hit it with a stick when you did it?
No, just shook it in front of the mic. We're high tech,
Yeah, exactly. We shook it in time though, so it was.
Well, kind of in time. I may have tweaked it a little bit.
Quantized, baby, and 32% swing.
You're giving away secrets here.
I know, they have these groove templates, Anyway, they always say you should do that on the hi-hats when you program digital hi-hats. You should always afterwards do a groove quantize or something on the hat.
Yeah, it does help. I don't have the ability to automatically do that, but I've been playing with this stuff long enough to know to go in there and dial things in a little bit by hand.
Bend them a bit. I like, anytime I ever do drum tracks in the computer, other than like building from scratch and needing just a straight 8 or something, I'll usually try to play the drums along with the track rather than program them. And it just sort of gets that little bit of humanness trying to follow the band on some stuff anyway. You get these, I'll play the kick and snare and then maybe go back and redo the hi-hats and try to do a little bit more than just tick, 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 kind of a thing. So, yeah.
Just throw a green bullet inside of a suitcase with a blanket in there and hit it with a drum kick pedal.
There you go. That's absolutely, that's the exact way to do it.
Thump. Thump.
And then some creative EQ, and you're off the
Right. Yeah.
That's funny.
I like doing stuff that way because I do the opposite too. I'll literally draw out a kick drum waveform down to, the sample in things like Milky Tracker, software like that. So, I know what different kick sounds look like, feel like, frequency-wise, how they sweep across frequencies, where there's noise in it and where there isn't, and all that sort of thing, down to this intimate level. So yeah, you give me anything that I can hit, kick, or whatever, and I can make it sound like a kick drum.
Yeah, it's like industrial folk music is what you're doing, sort of.
Don't put me in a pigeonhole, man.
No, I'm sorry, but that's
like the most ridiculous pigeonhole ever. Industrial folk.
I think so. Yeah. No, just the DIY part of creating the percussion sounds rather than slamming a door and calling that a snare drum. But
there's an idea. Tie somebody's tooth to a doorknob. Record that. Get some really good noises out of that.
Yeah. That reminds me of the time I was working on that. I think I mentioned this before, but I was working on that movie sound design, and I filled a guitar case full of pillows and threw it down 2 flights of stairs and mic'd it. Just to get the sound of a human being falling downstairs. It didn't technically work out, but it was fun at the time.
Worth doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, we were in an apartment, so me and my wife did it, and we were just hoping that nobody would come running in to, what the hell are you doing? I'm working on sound design, damn it. Did I ever mention the time I got caught wearing high heels doing that?
Were you doing Foley work?
Yeah.
Well, that's less funny.
Yeah, well, the funny part is I'm in my basement with a portable bat machine walking around on cement with my mom's high heels on, recording it, and my dad comes walking down the stairs, sees me, turns around, walks back up the stairs. So that was what happened on that one. Yeah, that's why it was funny. I had to explain afterwards that I was working on a movie, but Foley is great.
I'd say I was right there with you, but no.
Never
you're on your own.
I'm totally on my own on that one.
Out there by yourself, man.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
We got a couple minutes yet. So you sent me a link earlier this week. I don't know what it was for, but you sent me a link to some USB 2 audio interface thing. It looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, I can't remember, it was made by Yuri. I can't remember the model number off the top of my head. The one thing I didn't like, I'll put it in the show notes. The one thing I didn't like about it wasn't 19 inches and it wasn't rack mountable.
Yeah, that was one big reason why it would never end up here. If it don't bolt to the rack, it don't come home.
Yeah, I did like the fact that it looked old school. And it had some nice features like 4 inputs and stuff. I think it retails for $250 Canadian. The problem that I have with buying an interface that doesn't come with software or says it will work with all kinds of different software is just the whole latency issue thing.
Yeah.
And I had bought an M Audio, one of these just one input things. And it came with Pro Tools free, but it wouldn't let you save, and it was just a giant pain in the butt. And any other audio program I used with it, the latency was just ridiculous. Like I'd say hello, and it would be 5 minutes later I'd hear it back, and I'm like, how am I ever going to track anything with this? So the only reason that I would stop myself from buying that thing was just because there's no real software for it. And I'm also looking at the PreSonus stuff. They have a few decent little interface boxes. I'm basically looking at something with a 4-channel in and out.
Yeah, PreSonus does seem to have a kind of big market share in that price range.
Yeah, and like after my little trouble with the M audio box, I'm just like, no. And I've been playing with PreSonus's. It's called Studio One. It's their free recording software, and it's like super duper bare bones VSTs, ridiculously easy to edit. Does pretty much everything else a DAW can do. And for like home recording, I don't need all the Pro Toolsiness. I just need to be able to do a few little things, kind of basically just for home recording. So I think I'm probably going to end up going that route. And the competing interface that's 4 channels by them is basically the same price. So for the sake of argument, I think I'm going to go with the one that has software that I've already used, that I know works, that even doesn't have much latency, even when I just plug a mic into my computer and play it back. And so, it's always good to have stuff that's made to work together, is basically the gist of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the Yuri looks really cute and totally old school, I think I'm going to pass. I seen it in, actually, that's another probably the big no-no, was I seen it at a bargain bin at a music store. So I think it was probably $100 more at the time. So, stay away from the bargain bin.
Yeah, probably driver issues on that then. I know that's one of the main problems with my Phonic Firefly 808. Functionally, it works fine, but software-wise, you're left out in the cold because they don't have good software support for it. One type of interface in that price range that I can definitely recommend is the TC Electronic stuff. Their drivers are really low latency and really well done, so I can definitely give them a thumbs up. I've had their 2-channel sort of, I think it's their Desktop Connect 8. I think it's discontinued now, but I've had it for many, many years, and it's still kicking butt.
Yeah, the real thing, like, for me, even with Pro Tools too.
That's a FireWire one, though, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I definitely need USB for this little laptop. But yeah, FireWire is normally the better way to go when you're talking audio interface. Just for A to least.
And Macintosh is better for that kind of thing, too.
Yeah. For me, this is just about plugging a mic in and a guitar in every once in a while. Nothing exciting, Actually, for me, I really enjoy just having
So is this for at home, then?
This is at home farting around. Actually,
for podcasting, then, sir.
Podcasting as well, yeah. The other thing that I like to have is just have a speaker set up with a DAW so that I can, like if I'm learning a tune, I can crank it up on speakers and actually feel like I'm, learning the song rather than like listen to it on YouTube on a, like small computer speakers or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I use my TC Electronic for. It's basically an audio interface that is the output channels for my mastering and editing computer that I do all the video work on. And it's got the balanced main left and right outs that go directly to my KRK Rocket studio monitors. So works really well for that.
I think I'm gonna. You have the 4s, right? Or the 6s?
I have 6s.
6s.
Yeah.
I think
you
I
have
might
8s at work.
I have 8s at work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'll
think
trade
I might.
you. Okay.
as long as yours aren't the round edged speakers, I like the square ones.
Mine are round. They're the ones with the nice rounded
edges. Yeah.
One of them's yellow and the other one's black, and the yellow one has a black speaker and the black one has a yellow speaker.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Because I have a mismatch set because I have to buy everything as cheaply as I can, and I got a really good deal on the limited edition yellow one, and then I had to get a normal one to go with it.
You're one of those people that wear 2 different kinds of socks, I'm guessing.
No, not so much, but they look okay because they're opposite colors. They kind of look like they're supposed to be like that if you don't know better.
That's genius. What I was going to say about
it helps me tell the difference between the left and the right channel. That's what I tell people.
Exactly. Rather than having to look at your hands, right?
Uh-huh.
I was going to mention that the one thing when you're talking about DAWs, like for me with Pro Tools, they have the new version you can pretty much run apparently with any audio interface. But I still like the idea of using the interface that the company creates because they just tend to almost always work properly. Like with the Pro Tools version that I have and the Digio O2 I have at work, those things work like seamlessly every day, no problem, no latency, no issues. So to me, and this is the same with the PreSonus thing. I think it would probably just be the best route. I was going to mention that the other interface that I'd love to get, but there's just a software issue, is any of the Motu interfaces I quite like, but they don't have much in the way of decent PC software. It's almost always Mac only, or PC but no MIDI and really dim things like that.
Trying to do audio on a PC is a bit of a masochistic enterprise.
Yeah, I know, but I'm semi-professional at it, so. But yeah, it is a pain in the ass. But for what I want to do, it's not really going to matter too much. Eventually, I'll get a Mac, but for the time being,
it's too expensive.
Macs aren't cheap. Yeah,
Not
and
even
you have to sort of relegate the purchase to, like, if it's gonna make your life easier at home, fine, but how much are you gonna use it, yada yada yada. So it really kind of comes down to that sort of a thing. It's like my bass player always says, he'd buy new gear if he was getting paid more to play, but at this point he's got all the gear he needs to play. So if he was gigging more, then he would warrant said purchases.
Right.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah. And
Anyway.
You're talking about a for-home purchase anyway, so it's not like it's going to net you anything.
No, exactly. So, I mean, for now, all I need is just for giggles at this point. But yeah, I just thought that Yuri looks neat. As to whether Yuri's a good company, but as to they're really good at making. I think they're really good at making the stuff that they know how to make, and maybe apparently that's what they should stick with, compressors and things like that. But,
all right, so you listeners out
cool.
there, let us know what you think of those mixes and what you think of that audio interface. That's
cool.
all the time we have for this week. Thank you for listening. You can find this show every Friday at PatchBay.tv. There's an RSS feed there on the page if you want to have it automatically downloaded to your phone, iTunes, whatever. That's it for us for this week. We'll see you guys next week.